You had a dream last night, and the unusual part is that your brain deliberately chose to forget it. There is no trace left in your memory. You will dream again tonight, and by the time morning arrives, it will disappear just as completely. This is not a mistake, but your memory system working exactly as it was designed to. Perhaps you believe you stopped dreaming long ago, or maybe you occasionally catch a small fragment that fades away before you even stand up. Maybe you wake up empty every morning and assume your mind simply shuts off during the night. In reality, all of these experiences come from the same underlying system, just viewed from slightly different perspectives. Your brain relies on a specific chemical to mark an experience, so it can be stored and recalled later. But during the stage of sleep, when dreams are most vivid, that chemical is almost entirely turned off. The signal that normally tells your deeper memory centers, "Keep this," is removed at the exact moment your mind is creating its most complex internal scenes of the day. These experiences were never meant to be stored. This raises an important question. Why would the brain produce such detailed, immersive events only to ensure they cannot be remembered? The answer begins with understanding what that stage of sleep is like internally, because the same brain chemistry explains two things at once. It clarifies why dreams feel so real while you're inside them, and why they vanish so quickly when you wake. Sleep is not a single, uniform state. Instead, it moves in cycles of about 90 minutes, each one guiding you through very different conditions. Early in the night, these cycles are dominated by deep, slow sleep, which serves a separate purpose. During this phase, your brain organizes and stores the facts of your day, names, numbers, and small details, replaying them from temporary storage into long-term memory. It is also when the brain performs a kind of cleaning process, opening pathways between cells and clearing out the waste produced by daily thinking. That is one type of nightly work. But as the night continues, another phase begins to expand. Your eyes move rapidly beneath closed lids, and your brain becomes nearly as active as it is when you are awake. This is the stage where dreaming occurs, and it does not happen evenly throughout the night. Instead, it grows longer and richer in the final hours before waking, which is why the dream you sometimes remember is usually the one just before your alarm. During this dreaming phase, 3 major chemical changes occur in your brain, each contributing to the experience. First, the signal for alertness drops sharply. Deep in the brainstem, a compact group of cells normally releases a chemical that keeps you attentive and marks important moments from memory. In this phase, that system becomes almost completely silent. The chemical, known as norepinephrine, falls to very low levels, and its absence is the main reason dreams fade so quickly. Your cortex remains highly active, creating a full sensory world. But the mechanism that records experiences has effectively been removed. This is not speculation. Scientists have directly measured these chemical levels in the sleeping brain and confirmed them through imaging that tracks activity across different sleep stages. The second change removes another layer of control, a separate system in the brainstem that helps regulate mood and filter thoughts during the day also quiets down. The system uses serotonin, and when it decreases, the usual filters that keep irrelevant or strange ideas out of your awareness are lowered. Without this control, anything can enter the dream and feel completely natural. The third change is what brings the dream world to life. A chemical called acetylcholine rises sharply, even exceeding its levels during wakefulness. This surge drives vivid sensory experiences, images, sounds, movement, and texture, making dreams feel rich and immersive rather than faint or abstract. Your visual cortex becomes highly active, constructing an entire environment without any input from your eyes, allowing your mind to create a complete reality from within. Your motor cortex continues sending signals to move, to run, to grab onto things, yet those signals are intercepted before they ever reach your muscles, which is exactly why you can run, fall, or even fly in a dream without your body actually moving. During this phase, your body is intentionally paralyzed, controlled by a mechanism in the brainstem that locks your muscles in place for the entire duration of the dream and releases them the moment it ends. The dream requires a body that cannot physically respond to it. When this mechanism fails, which can happen in some individuals as they grow older, the body begins to act out the dream, leading people to kick, shout, or reach toward things that are not physically present, essentially performing the actions their dreaming mind believes are real. This rare condition reveals what that nightly paralysis is preventing in everyone else. At the same time, a small almond-shaped structure deep within the brain, responsible for processing raw emotion, becomes highly active, flooding the dream with fear, desire, sadness, and happiness at levels equal to or even stronger than waking life. While the body remains still, the mind is completely unrestricted. Consider all of this together. Your thinking brain is active, your emotions are intensified, the system that records memory is turned off, and, as you're about to understand, the part responsible for logical reasoning has also been deliberately disabled. Imagine it like a recording studio operating at full capacity, where musicians are playing energetically, filling the room with sound, yet someone has quietly switched off the recording system. The performance is real and happening in the moment, but nothing is being saved because recording was never the goal. In this system, experiencing and storing are two separate functions, and only one is active. So what exactly has been turned off? Just behind your forehead lies the region responsible for reasoning, the part that checks whether what you are experiencing actually makes sense. It tracks time, sequence, cause and effect, identity, and the limits of reality, and it helps regulate your emotional responses by calming your internal alarm system. This region is also one of the first to weaken when you are sleep-deprived. However, during the dreaming phase, it is intentionally dimmed due to the same chemical changes that remove the memory recording signal. This explains something important about every strange dream you have ever had. Dreams lack logic because the system that questions reality is inactive. This is why you can find yourself in a place that is both your childhood home and an airport at the same time, speaking naturally with someone who is no longer alive, without any sense that something is wrong. The part of your brain that would normally question this inconsistency is simply not active, leaving no internal voice to challenge the experience. You accept the impossible because the mechanism that defines what is possible has temporarily shut down. But on rare occasions, this reasoning region briefly turns back on while the dream is still ongoing. This is not theoretical. It has been observed. In these moments, a person suddenly becomes aware that they are dreaming. The dream environment remains intact, but awareness returns, and some individuals can even influence what happens next. Brain imaging studies confirm this pattern, showing that the reasoning area behind the forehead partially reactivates during these moments. It is not a full awakening, but a partial return of conscious awareness within the dream itself. In a normal dream, this region remains inactive, and that absence is the key difference between simply experiencing a dream and recognizing it from within. When you step back and view the entire process, the pattern becomes clear. Each night your brain constructs a complete internal world, fills it with powerful emotion, disables your ability to act physically, turns off the system that stores memory, and removes the logic that will question it, creating an experience that is vivid, immersive, and ultimately designed to disappear. It removes the ability to judge, and once that is gone, a deeper question remains, one that chemistry alone cannot fully resolve. Why would the brain construct something so complex only to erase it? Look closely at the exact state the brain has created. The reasoning system is inactive, emotions are operating at full intensity, and the alertness signal, the same one that makes moments feel sharp, urgent, and physically stressful during the day, is absent. That precise combination may be the entire purpose. During this dreaming phase, the brain may be replaying the emotional experiences of your recent life, an idea proposed by sleep researchers Ethan van der Helm and Dr. Matthew Walker, which reshapes how we understand the function of dreams. The events themselves return, along with the emotions tied to them, but the alertness chemical that originally surged through your body during those moments is missing. The experience is replayed, but the stress response has been carefully removed. This difference is significant. That alertness signal does more than mark memory. It also drives the physical sensations of stress, a racing heart, tight chest, and a body prepared for danger. If a memory were replayed with that chemistry still active, you would relive the full intensity of fear. But when it is replayed without that signal, you experience the event without its physical grip. In waking life, this separation rarely happens. Memory and bodily response are usually fused together. This dreaming phase may be the only place where they are separated. Consider what this means in real terms. Something difficult happens during your day. a tense conversation, a moment of fear, or a small but meaningful loss. At that time, your body is flooded with stress chemistry, which helps lock the memory into place and contributes to the emotional weight it carries. Later, during sleep, your brain revisits that same experience repeatedly across the night. But now, it unfolds in a setting where the stress signal has been turned off. The memory plays again, but without the physical intensity that once accompanied it. According to this idea, this is how emotional pain begins to soften. Night after night, the brain processes the same emotional material without the stress chemistry, and over time, the intensity gradually decreases. You wake remembering what happened, but the emotional impact begins to fade. The common phrase "time heals" may actually reflect a very specific biological process, where sleep slowly separates emotional charge or memory across many nights. Beneath this process is a clear division of labor between different stages of sleep. Earlier in the night, deep, slow sleep focuses on storing factual details, what happened, where it happened, and the sequence of events, transferring them into long-term memory. The dreaming phase, however, serves a different role. It works through the emotional weight of those experiences, engaging the brain's emotional centers, while keeping the stress signal inactive. These two stages perform two separate but complementary tasks. One preserves the facts, while the other adjusts how strongly those facts affect you. You retain the memory of the argument, the outline of the loss, and the order of events. But over time, what changes is the intensity of the feeling attached to them. The memory remains, but the emotional wound gradually closes. It is important to approach this carefully, because accuracy matters. Each individual part of this process has been directly observed. The drop in alertness chemicals, the activation of emotional centers, and the replay of experiences during sleep. However, the complete explanation is still being studied. While the evidence strongly supports this direction, the full picture is not yet, and researchers continue to test how all these pieces fit together. If this understanding proves correct, it can significantly reshape how we interpret the purpose of dreams, suggesting that what feels like something fleeting and disposable may actually be a critical process through which the brain quietly reshapes how we carry our experiences from one day to the next. This brings us back to a very common experience that many people describe. If the dreaming phase is where emotional processing happens, then the person who says they stopped dreaming in their 50s has not actually stopped dreaming at all. Something more subtle has changed. The nature of the dreams has shifted, the ability to remember them has altered, and the amount of this processing completed each night has changed alongside it. To understand this, you have to separate two things that feel like one, but are actually different. As people age, the structure of dreaming quietly changes. The total time spent in this dreaming phase decreases over the years. Part of this is simply because overall sleep duration becomes shorter. Another part is that this phase occupies a smaller portion of the night than it once did. Estimates often suggest a drop from about a quarter of total sleep to closer to a fifth or even less. These numbers are not exact, but the trend is consistent and well supported. Less time in this phase means fewer dreams occurring across the night. That part is straightforward, but it combines with something about timing. Because the dreaming phase is concentrated in the final portion of the night, it overlaps with the hours when lighter, older sleepers are most likely to wake. The deepest and richest dreaming happens just before morning, exactly when sleep becomes more fragile. This is why many people over 60 only recall dreams that occur close to waking, often as daylight begins to appear. However, dreaming and remembering a dream are not the same process. The difference between them is where the real insight lies. To carry a dream into the morning, a very specific condition must be met. You have to wake up during the dream or within seconds after it ends, while it is still active in your mind. In that brief moment of waking, the alertness chemical begins to return just enough to record a fragment before you fall back asleep. That short window is the only opportunity, and it closes quickly. If you remain asleep, nothing is stored. If you wake even a few minutes later, the dream has already faded beyond recovery. It must be captured in real time, or it is gone completely. This explains something important about how people report their dreams. Someone who says they dream vividly every night is actually describing a pattern of frequent brief awakenings during the dreaming phase. Meanwhile, A person who claims they never dream is likely sleeping through the same phase continuously without interruption. When someone notices their dreams fading later in life, what has actually happened is a combination of two changes. There is less dreaming overall, and there are fewer brief awakenings overlapping with the dreams that still occur. Both changes reduce the chance of remembering. The key point is this: the dreams never stopped. The opportunity to remember them became smaller. This leads to a surprising conclusion. A remembered dream is not just evidence that you dreamed. It is evidence that your sleep was interrupted. Every dream you recall required a moment of waking to capture it. So the more dreams you remember, the more often your sleep was broken. And more interruptions mean less of the long, continuous dreaming phase that may be necessary for emotional processing to fully occur. Following this idea leads to an unexpected place. A person who wakes each morning with vivid, detailed dreams may actually be getting less of the brain's nightly emotional recalibration, not more. In contrast, someone who wakes with no memory of dreams at all may have slept through the entire process without disruption, allowing it to complete fully. In this sense, forgetting may actually indicate that the system worked exactly as intended, running from beginning to end without interruption. The person who remembers nothing may have completed the full night's work, while the one who remembers everything may have been pulled out of the process repeatedly before it finished. There is a harder truth within this as well. A night broken into many fragments is. Not every night of sleep is equal to one that runs uninterrupted. Even when the total hours are the same, it is a long, continuous stretch that seems to allow the deepest work to happen. A restless night filled with frequent awakenings and vivid dream recall often replaces that uninterrupted flow with scattered fragments of memory. You wake up with more stories to tell, but less of the internal process fully completed. This is a general pattern, not an absolute rule, and it is important to be precise about that. Some individuals naturally remember more dreams without experiencing harmful sleep disruption. A higher tendency toward brief awakenings and recall is a measurable trait and does not automatically indicate a problem. Still, the direction of the relationship challenges common intuition. The person who recalls vivid dreams may not necessarily have an advantage, while the one who wakes with nothing at all may have allowed their brain to complete more of its overnight work. This leads to a deeper question, especially relevant later in life. What is the long-term cost of gradually losing this phase? If the dreaming stage truly acts as a space where emotions are processed, then its slow reduction over decades suggests a gradual decline in that capacity. By the mid-60s, a person may be operating with only about 2/3 to 4/5 of the dreaming time they had in early adulthood. Each emotional experience now has fewer opportunities to be revisited and softened during sleep. There are fewer chances for the stress-related chemistry to be separated from the memory itself. This may connect to a subtle shift many people notice with age, but rarely named directly. Emotional systems tend to become more reactive when rest is reduced, with stronger signals and weaker regulation. The gradual loss of this dreaming phase may contribute to a similar effect over time. Emotional experiences may accumulate with less nightly processing to ease their intensity. The feeling that events carry more weight or that emotions sit closer to the surface may partly reflect this slow shift, alongside other biological changes that come with aging. It is only one factor among many, but it operates quietly and consistently each night. This pattern also fits into a broader reality. As the body ages, many of its repair processes receive less time and fewer resources than before. Cellular recovery, energy regulation, and other restorative systems all face similar reductions. The shrinking of the dreaming phase belongs to the same group, another system working within a gradually narrowing window. There is one final place where the same mechanism appears, and it is perhaps the most striking. The brainstem systems that generate this vivid dreaming activity may activate again in the final moments of life, producing dreamlike patterns as much as the brain grows quiet. The same internal process that created entire worlds each night may briefly return one last time. Consider everything that happens while you sleep. You dreamed last night, and you will dream again tonight. Your brain constructed a detailed, emotional world, complete with narrative and sensation. It did this while your reasoning system was inactive, while your emotional centers were highly engaged, and while a chemical signal amplified activity in ways that can exceed waking levels. At the same time, your brain removed the single element required to preserve that experience. The alertness signal dropped to almost nothing precisely when the most elaborate mental activity of the day was unfolding. The dream was allowed to exist, but not to be stored. This may be because the process itself depends on the absence of stress chemistry. Your brain replayed emotional experiences in an environment where the alarm signal was turned off. Whether this replay is what gradually reduces emotional weight remains the leading explanation, supported by current evidence though still under investigation. The forgetting, then, is not a flaw but a feature. The system is built to process, not to preserve. You moved through the full cycle, and the work was completed. The dreams served their purpose, and your brain ensured that you would not carry them forward, even as they quietly shaped how you carry everything else.